Welcome back to this Blender for Beginners tutorial series. We just covered using an array modifier to repeat objects in a line without having to actually work on more than just the base object. This time we're going to make an object that uses an array in a radial array rather than just a straight line. And we're also going to be stacking arrays together to make an object array itself in more than one direction. So let's start with, you guessed it, creating a new collection, and this is going to be our toothbrushes. And in top view, we're going to put our cursor back to the world origin. We're going to create a circle. That's going to be add circle, and we're going to make it 16, and the radius is going to be 0.1. And actually we're going to make it a lot smaller than that, but that's enough manual entry for now. This is going to be a disc with a raised center with 4 holes in it for toothbrushes to go into. So let's start by just making our kind of domed shape. So we'll E scale, bring that into the center, and E scale. Actually, let's undo that. We'll scale it up, in, and let's make this a bit of a dome that'll be kind of on the top. And again, you don't need to follow each of these steps verbatim. You're just kind of creating the same object. By now you should be able to kind of figure out how to make the shape you want. So let's fill that in. We're going to turn on our proportional editing. G, Z, that is good enough for now. So now let's expand our selection and bring it up a bit. Put 2 loop cuts here. Bring those up a little. And E, scale out. We're going to make our little lip around the outside. Okay, now we're going to make our array object, or sorry, an empty object to make our array. And actually this grid fill in the middle is not going to work for that. So let's delete these. We can recreate the top when we're done here. Or what we can do is we can fill it up use J. That should be all right. So from a top-down view, let's go into wireframe and take half of the mesh and delete it and do that again, so that we are left with 1/4 of mesh. Now an empty object is something we haven't used yet. It is simply an object that holds a set of coordinates, so that it exists in space and it has rotation and scale to it, but it doesn't actually show up in any render. It's not a geometric shape. So let's hit Shift A and go down to empty, and we're just going to use a plane axis. So what a plane axis looks like is just a 3D crosshairs. We can go to the object data properties here and make this look a lot smaller. That way it's not so huge compared to the object we're going to parent to it. So let's give this an array modifier after we've applied the scale and the rotation. Rotation and scale. Give it an array, and by default it's just making an array that way, right? So let's give it 4. And we're going to uncheck relative offset and come down here to object offset. We have this little picker here. We're going to click our empty object, and nothing has happened yet. That's because we need to rotate this object, and that's going to dictate how much the array is going to rotate per object. So let's rotate on the Z 90 degrees. And there is a radial array. That was pretty easy. Now the reason we want to do that is because obviously we made the object. It doesn't matter if we chop it up into 4 pieces. We're going to put these holes in it, and we don't want to repeat that process 4 different times and try and make them look the same. So we'll go up here, take these 4 quads on the 45-degree angle and press Inset and delete those faces that were just created, or the ones that were inset. Take this ring and make it a circle. And it should be a fairly good angle. It shouldn't mess up our dome shape too much. But as you can see, we have it the whole way around now. If we were to add subdivision surface, that's interesting. One thing we forgot to do with our array modifier, which is great about arrays because you can change things whenever, is turn on merge. And now not everything is merged, and we've got some weird stuff around the center. We want to merge first and last around the ring, so that gets rid of this seam. Now these are all weird. Why is that? Well, that is because our merge distance, some of these vertices in here are closer together than our merge distance. So just make this a much smaller distance, and it looks all right. So let's add a nice crease there. One here. This is going to be a metal piece, if I didn't say that in the beginning. So just keep that in mind when you set how sharp the edges are. Usually something plasticky is going to have more bubbly edges. let's not do that. Now let's take from here to here. Clicking one vertex or edge or face, and then control clicking another takes the shortest path between them and selects everything in between. So we're going to take that down here. And no, we're not. We're going to take all of these faces up to here, and we're going to duplicate them, move them down a little bit, let's turn off our subdivision surface so that we can see more clearly what we're doing. And select that. That was a shift control click to take the shortest path between and everything in between. And we're going to scale this on the Z 0. We missed a piece. Okay, so we have some overlapping geometry that we missed here. So the easy fix is always merge by distance. Okay, so now we can take this kind of ring and scale it on the Z to 0, and then we have a flat circle. We're going to take from here to here and here to here, Control E, L to bridge. Now, another thing we have not covered is I mentioned in the very beginning what normals are, and they are the direction that faces are facing, basically. In our overlays panel up here, we can turn on face orientation. Blue is the front of a face, red is the back, and we have faces meeting each other that are facing opposite directions, and so that messes up our shading. So if we turn this off, we have this weird shading, things curve the wrong ways and all that. What we can do to get them all facing the same direction is to select all faces and Shift N, and that is recalculate normals. So now our smoothing is all fixed, and if we go up here and show face orientation, we see all blue except for the inside, which is what we want to see. So to finish that off, we'll take this and this, Control E, L, and they are bridged. Another thing, usually it's a good idea to have a control ring around it. I don't know that it's such a problem. It looks kind of good, looks kind of okay without this. But for good practice, let's just throw that in there. We'll do the same down here. And we don't need these rings, so we'll dissolve them. So this is where our toothbrushes will stick through there. Now, this is still too big. You'll remember we made this a 1/10 of a meter. So let's apply the array, because we've done our work with the circles. Delete that empty because we don't need it anymore. And let's scale this to 0.089. Very specific, right? Well, I've done this a few times and this is what works. Alright, so let's take this scale right there, and that will match. You know what? We took out one too many of these. We need a little more of a crease there. That's better. Now, let's move that up. And we're going to have a little ceramic base on the floor with a trough around it that the base of the toothbrushes will sit in. So this will just be another circle. I'm not going to explain a whole lot along the way with this because it's nothing that we haven't done before, but it needs to be done. I might even fast forward it in the final recording. Here we will create another object, and this is going to be another circle. It doesn't need to be very complicated. It can just be something like 8. I am checking my height against one I've already made that had pretty good proportions. So we will kind of make it match that. Alright, that's done. I hope that wasn't too repetitive for you. It looks like we have our toothbrush holder done, and we can move on to making some toothbrushes for it, which are going to be a little different than usual because we're not all going to be following the same exact reference image. I'll show you the one that I used, but you can choose your own since toothbrushes kind of have a bunch of different designs out there. You can pick one you like, you think might be a challenge or easier, whatever you like, but I will show you what image I used and the toothbrush I came up with. Alright, I wanted a rather simple toothbrush. I didn't want to deal with all these designs with rubberized grips and bumps and bulges all over the place, so I typed in classic toothbrush, and one of the first in the list is one that I liked and decided to use, which is this one. It's not a Creative Commons license, so I'm not going to just give it to you to download, so you can grab it from here if you like for your reference, or grab another one if you like something better. But the way you would do that is right click and save image. Back in Blender, what we're going to do is go to one of the straight on views, front or side, and we're going to add our reference image. So if you'll remember, we go to add, image, reference, and see wherever you've saved that, and we're going to scale it to the size of a toothbrush, well, the size of a toothbrush in our image, which should be pretty close to reality. That's probably a good size. So let's rename our toothbrush holder to, I don't know, toothbrush holder. And let's hide it. Let's put our cursor around here. Start with a cube, scale that way down, and let's put our reference image on top of everything. There we go. Let's bring this guy here, and we're going to start by extruding. Actually, we'll go into wireframe mode so we can just select through. We're going to take our extreme corners and get the primary shape first. Do not just scale because we're going to go from the other side as well. So we'll just move these around like this. And this toothbrush is going to be where we use our multiple array modifiers. It's going to be with the bristles once we get to those. Looks like screencast keys decided to stop. I hope that didn't mess up anything for you, but we're going to put these at kind of the neck here, or the base of the, I don't know, you call that the head of the toothbrush? I don't know. We'll extrude that here, extrude that here, and here. Alright. Now if we look at the side of our toothbrush, this will scale out on the Y. It depends which way your image is facing in the scene, really. Let's not do that. Alright, so where was our wide point? Right here. Scale that on the Y. I could probably pay more attention to detail on this, but really it's just got to be the basic shape because it's not going to be close to the camera. You might be picking up on a theme here, but things that are not close to the camera do not get a lot of attention because no one's going to see it. And if no one's going to see the detail, then that's a lot of detail that the render engine is going to have to chew on at render time. And it's just going to add time to your renders, and no one's actually going to see that detail. So as long as you have a basic shape, that's all you need. We're going to add some beveling. And I think we'll use the bevel modifier to do that. We'll give these a weight. Add the bevel. Make it 2. I always use 2 because it gives you a central line on each edge, and it gives you something to crease with rather than just one face. And here's a good example of putting modifiers in the wrong order. They are calculated from top to bottom. So if we subdivide and then try to bevel, we're beveling some already small sections. But if we put the bevel first, we allow the subdivision to subdivide using those. Let's take this reference image and move it to reference. It is out of our way. And we want kind of a bevel here. We'll just make our bevel because it needs to be wider than the rest there anyway. That's pretty good. Move up here. Make a crease there. Looks fine. Let's bring our subdivisions down to 1 because, like I said, it's detail no one's going to see. There we have a decent toothbrush, but we need bristles. So let's do that. This is where we will use our multiple array modifiers in one object. So let's add for ourselves a circle, and it's going to have 6 sides, 0.001, and it's going to face the view That's actually a pretty good size. Okay, so we'll apply our rotation and scale, grab all the edges, and extrude those we may have hidden our reference image too soon. We will bring that out. There we go. Now we'll hide that reference collection. Let's scale. Again, detail people aren't going to see, but we'll keep it to a minimum. We'll give it a 1 subdivision. Alright, so that's a little group of bristles. Let's give them an array modifier. And our first array is going to be on the Y. So I like to use constant usually because that gives us actual measurements rather than relative, which is relative to the size of the object. And let's set our X to 0 and Y we'll use Shift and slide our cursor along holding the clicker, the button. And let's make that 5. Make it look fairly centered. And now we can, yeah, that looks okay. We're going to add another array, also a constant offset, but this time on the Z. We'll move it along on a negative value, negative 0.0015. Whoa. This is going to vary based on what your toothbrush is that you're making. That looks good enough. Nah. Because we're all perfectionists here, let's make it that. That looks a little more uniform. It's not the same as the width, but we can increase our count to about there. Now we have a toothbrush, and we can parent that to the toothbrush end handle. So let's name that. And bristles. So now when we move this around, they follow. Let's unhide everything with Alt-H. And we're going to make the origin of this somewhere on the bottom. Okay. Bring it back here, and so now when we rotate, it rotates around the origin. Rotate on Y, bring it to rest just against the metal. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I can't help myself. So there we go, and let's bring our cursor back to the center. We are going to take both of these and Alt-D, if you remember that is instancing rather than duplicate, and we're going to rotate, but that's not helping us right now. We need to change our 3D cursor to be the point of reference. Now when we rotate on the Z, we can go 180, hit enter, and there it is. Let's rotate this on its local. You can see that there are edges that we missed in our bevel weight. That looks better. Now let's rotate this on its own axis, its local axis. First, we want to change this back to median point. We're going to rotate on its local Z. So we would hit R for rotate and double tap Z. And now it rotates on its own Z axis. We'll rotate on the Y. We don't want them to be the same exact angle as each other, because then it looks too uniform. Let's take these and we're going to parent them to the toothbrush holder. And I noticed I did not grab these. Since they are parented to the handles and the handles are parented here, everything will follow along. So that is the end of this tutorial, or this video. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
Hey guys, if you found this video useful, hit like and consider subscribing to the channel. And you can turn on that notification bell too so that you don't miss future videos. Until next time, I'm Carl with Blender Forge.